Well, we cannot hear you.
Okay, good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so today we will discuss the Magento Cloud Docker with MFTF integration. This presentation was prepared for the Imagine this year, the Imagine 2020, but because of COVID-19 situation, actually it was not able to have this. And also this presentation, I would say this demo was about how the Cloud Lab session. And you understand that having it remotely is not possible, so I will try to adapt the presentation itself to some kind of discussion and demonstration mostly. So we will go through slides, then if we will have time, I will show something on my local Docker. Before we start, I would like to show you one interesting resource. So for this lab, I created the GitHub repository. And actually, this is a guide how to run the MFTF locally in the most easiest way, I would say, if it's possible. So I'll just share this repository with the BlueJeans channel, so you can go and take a look after we are done. So yeah, we can start. Please don't hesitate to stop me in any moment and ask questions. Let's have this as interactive as possible. So in this session, we will have 4 lessons, I would say, 3 lessons and 1 overview. We will start with the basics of the Magento Cloud with template, repository, EC tools, and the dev documentation. Then we will slowly switch to the practical lessons. Of course, we will not do it practical for you, but I will try to get into some details and make some upskilling for you. Yeah, so initially the Magento Cloud Docker was designed to have some same representation of the Magento Cloud locally. And actually we still trying to achieve it, but I would say that currently we have a pretty stable product. We have support of all of the services, I would say, that Magento supports. We are also on the edge of new versions. We recently added the Elasticsearch 7.5 and 7.6. We are adding the MySQL 8.0 and so on. So we're trying to make your local experience very similar to what you have on the cloud. The Magento Cloud Docker has few use cases. It's for you to build the project locally with EC tools. The next one is to have the continuous integration pipeline in some of your infrastructure network, and we in Magento also trying to implement this and be the first in those things. So we're trying to integrate Cloud Docker with our integration tools. And of course, to deploy the Magento project with EC tools. So Magento Cloud ecosystem from the repositories and the projects looks pretty simple. You will have Magento Cloud Docker for running the Magento locally. And of course, we will need the template, which we regularly update with new versions of Magento. And also you will require EC tools because in our development pipeline we heavily require EC tools, and actually it currently in our perspective is one of the best tool to deploy Magento. And also, of course, Magento Cloud Docker requires the images. So images consist of two important things. It's one is the Docker Hub, which updates with the build images. And also repository. Those two things are heavily connected together, and eventually with each update to our Magento Cloud Docker repositories, we trigger the Docker Hub builds to build the images from source code. The template looks pretty simple. We have a bunch of branches. Those branches represent the different Magento versions. We update the Magento template only within the releases of new Magento, or if you want to, I would say, change something in the composer, just like bumping the EC tools minimal requirement version or the PHP. But it's very lightweight repository. It consists mostly of the configuration files to run the Magento on the cloud and also Magento Cloud. And EC Tools is our main deployment tool. We use it to deploy Magento on all our Magento Cloud clusters. Previously, it was a Magento Cloud configuration, but it is abandoned for a lot of time in favor of EC Tools. Yeah, so give me a second. Okay, so let me give me a second. I think somebody not seeing my screen. For some reason, let me fix it. Okay, do you see my screen right now?
Yes, we see now.
Okay, so please stop me if you don't see the screen, because like I'm trying to show you the slides. Okay, so do you see a slide with EC tools, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Next one is a repository. So this is Magento Cloud Docker repository, and eventually we, I'll say, we update with new version of services, with new version of configuration for those services. And the current status is that we are going to release Magento Cloud Docker 1.1, and next one will be 1.2 with a lot of different improvements. We also updating the development documentation on our Docker dev docs. So if you have suggestion, comment, or edits, please look at these dev docs and please contribute. We will be very happy to process those contributions. Okay, so before we actually start with MFTF Cloud Lab, I will just say that there are a few things that you will need to perform to have the smooth experience. So by some experiments, we figure out that the requirements for the run the Magento and the Cloud Docker itself is about 2 CPUs and memory at least 5 gigabytes. I would say that in newer Magento Cloud Docker 1.1, this may be decreased because we made big improvements to the Elasticsearch service, which was previously required at least 1 gigabyte of RAM, but I think it should be less in new release. It's much less. So, of course, you will need Git because our Magento Cloud template is on GitHub, so we will need Git. So, Mutagen is one of possible ways to have Magento Cloud Docker running. So, there are 2 ways. One is Mutagen, and the other one is Docker Sync. So they are doing pretty well, and they help fixing the synchronization issues on Mac machines. If you're using Linux, you don't need to install Mutagen or Docker Sync because Docker supports native synchronization on Linux machines. So you just have to provide specific option flag during the Docker Compose configuration. Of course, you will need to adjust some hosts on your machine, local machine, so it should be pretty easy to do. I will be working on my user slash www directory, which is root for all my projects. So I will try to have this similar convention during all of this lab. So what we will have to do is actually we clone in the Magento Cloud repository using the branch that I created for this lab. It's called Imagine Demo. So you, of course, can use any other branch, but this branch is fixed on some Magento version, which I tested heavily, and also it has the MFTF framework in composer dependencies. That's actually pretty all of the difference. So we will need to make some adjustments. So we will need to add keys as the instruction how to add keys is in my gist on GitHub. So yeah, I will share this link with you as well after the demo course. So there are two ways to run MFTF tests. As I said previously, one is production and one is developer testing. We will try to cover production, and if we will be fine with timing, we will move to the developer. So for the production, of course, you will need to run the composer install on the configured Magento template. And the first thing that you start doing with the Magento Cloud Docker is eventually building the Docker Posyniak file. That is being done with one command called build compose. So you will pass the one option called with Selenium, which eventually adds the Selenium service, Selenium container, and also adds few environment variables needed for proper Magento configuration on backend. So deployment is very simple. So you will need to use a Magento Docker binary file. It is located in your bin folder in your project. So you will need to run how to run the app, then EC redeploy. And EC redeploy actually triggers the EC tools, the tools build, EC tools deploy, and EC tools post deploy commands, which is set to have your Magento installed and running. Next one is we will need to make some adjustment. So I will try to explain what those things do. So of course we by default use the varnish to have Magento with the front end cache. So what we do is we using the Docker Compose run and into deploy container we pass the Magento configuration called system full page cache and cache application number 2, which sets to varnish. We also log this configuration into the env.php file, so it will be logged. We also configure the HTTP cache hosts into the Magento application, and after this we actually doing the cache clean via regular Magento application. After this, you would actually have the Magento 2 Docker and host up and running. You can visit the Magento 2 Docker or Magento 2 Docker admin, which is default admin URL. So this was the minimal set which we need to perform to have Magento run on the Cloud Docker. But for MFTF itself, we need to perform a few another steps. And we needed actually to make the MFTF tests running well. And actually we'll try to explain what those things do. So there are 4 required configuration. So first one is the admin account sharing. So for example, you want to have multiple threads to run run your MFTF tests. This is the case for the continuous integration pipeline. So you'll have different admins, or you will even have one single admin. So if you want to have one single admin for your different threads, you will have to set admin account sharing to one, which allows to reuse the same account without logging off. Next one is MFTF currently does not support forum keys, so we will have to disable the forum key. Next one is eventually we disable the secure in admin HTML because there is also some MFTF incompatibility with this, and like we are running on local machines, so it is not really required for us. Actually, this is pretty all. After these three changes, we clean the Magento application cache. Next one is related to the MFTF framework configuration itself. So there is a configuration, the .ini file, and we need to pass some configuration to this file. So you can do this by your hands, or you can do how does this slide show us via the command line. So there are a few configuration fields here. It is the base URL, which represents our up and running Magento Cloud Docker instance. We also need to pass the backend name for admin and the username, and of course the password. You can see those three fields are very, very default for Magento developers, because like we also have those same in the default Magento Cloud Docker installation, but of course you can change them to whatever you want. And if you change them, you will have to change your MFTF configuration as well. Also, there are a few modules which you'll have to whitelist and to not have MFTF running around them. And the last one is Selenium host. Here we pass the container name for our Selenium, which was generated by our build Docker Compose, and the container name is by default is Selenium. So once we do this, we just actually pass this configuration to the app/dev/test exceptions/.env file, which is a configuration file for MFTF. Actually, this is all that we need to prepare the MFTF framework for the Cloud Docker. And actually, the next commands will be related to the building the MFTF tests itself. So we added the MFTF command binary file, so you will not have to pass the full path to the MFTF framework in your vendor binary folder. So you just have to run Docker Compose, run test, and then MFTF command, and whatever command you would need. I would like to also say that we, in our Selenium Docker Compose implementation, we add in one more container called test, and this is essentially the required container to all of the MFTF commands, because MFTF framework requires a writable file system. So to not have any problems, we suggest you to use this test container. So first command actually builds the MFTF project. It generates some specific files, compiles them, and actually prepares for running tests. And next one is generate tests. It takes the different MFTF configuration around the project, compiles them, and actually creates the output configuration files to run the MFTF. After this, we are actually all good to run our tests. Here is example how to run test admin login test. It is very basic. It just tries to make the login into your Magento Cloud application. Right now, I will try to show it locally. So give me a second, please. So hopefully you see my screen and my console.
We don't.
You don't see it?
Mm-mm.
Okay, give me a second. Okay. Bench. Okay, do you see my terminal right now?
Yes, now we do.
Okay, cool. So I prepared most of the steps till that point where we are currently to run the application tests. So what I will do, I will just run the Docker compose run test MFTF command and run admin login test to show what will be the output. So our Docker compose command actually spin up the test container, which has all of the volumes configured to look into our file system with Magento, and then runs the admin login test. It probably will need some time, but hopefully it should fast. One more interesting actually thing here is that I'm passing the RAM option, and the idea is actually to have each time when you run some command with Docker compose run, you will have to remove the build container artifact to not consume your memory on your local machine. So please don't forget to pass this RAM flag. So this is the output of our MFTF framework. It is, I would say, pretty informative. It says what current version of MFTF. It says what current tests are we running. So it says admin login test, admin login test. And then it says like I'm going to page admin, I'm filling those username and login. Clicking on some pop-ups or login. And actually that's pretty all, and it says actually passed. So it took us like actually 10 seconds to have this MFTF test passing. And I would say in some cases it depends on your file system, but it can be even faster because if, for example, if you run in some continuous integration pipeline, when you have Linux and your file system is shared natively, those tests will be much faster to pass. But for me, locally sharing files with native Macintosh sync, it's pretty good result. So yeah, then we have our first passing MFTF test. Okay, let me continue to my slides. Okay. Okay. Okay, so next one will be actually we will try to go deeper to the development project. Do you see my slide right now?
No.
Sorry, I think it's actually related to the two-screen setup, so I will actually try to. Okay, so hopefully you see my screen right now.
No.
No, still not see.
We see it now.
Okay, good. So next one will be actually to go to the model development. So the idea here is we would have some our custom model which extends Magento and gives possibility to write custom MFTF test. So yeah, let's do that. So there are a few mods available. So first mod is FS sharing. Actually, so the idea is you share only template, and for production you share only template. For developer you share the full file system. With file system permissions you have read-only and read-write for volumes, and the developer you'll have read-write for everything. Performance is comparatively different. So in production, your performance will be very fast, and we really recommend it for your continuous integration pipelines. For developer mode, you will have worse performance because the Docker has to sync a lot of files. And it's true for the Macintosh machines, but for Linux, actually, developer will be not slightly less performant than production because for Linux native. So I prepared a specific model for this lab, and I also will share this link to this channel. So there are two ways to install this model. But I would really suggest you to install it via Composer by running 3 simple commands. So once you are done, just run the update Composer, Composer update, and you will have the model run. The model is pretty simple. So it's actually just adds a page to your Magento application and then runs the MFTF test to check this. So because we are running the developer mode, we would like to need to have the few new options passed to our build compose. One is the mode called developer, one is the vSelenium, as we discussed before, and the sync engine. So sync engine, I'm currently using Mutagen. You may use the Docker sync if you prefer it, or if you have Linux, you will have to pass sync engine native. Native sync engine also supports on Mac and Windows, but the performance is pretty bad there. So yeah, currently for Mac and for Windows, we still suggest to use Mutagen or Docker sync. And you actually up your containers. So you will have to run the Mutagen or Docker sync, whatever you prefer. But for initial sync, for example, Mutagen will take about 5 minutes. So don't rush and be patient. Next one is we are deploying Magento in the same way as we did for production. As the only difference here will be the deploy mod set command, which will set it to the developer. And this is pretty all. Everything else we covered in previous sections. Yeah, so after that you will have run Magento instance. Then you will have to adjust a little bit your configuration as we did it previously. Also adjust the MFTF tests, generate those tests as previously, and run them. So here you can see I added one more test called Opera Storefront Demo Page Test, which actually just opens the new page which was added by the my custom extension and verifies if there is a specific text. After this, you would actually have to just stop your running instances. This can be done with Docker compose down and the Mutagen sync terminate. So there are some specific resources around the Docker MFTF. We have a specific section on our dev docs where actually those steps are being explained more deeply. And actually this is all for this lab session. So yeah, do you have any questions? What I would like to also show that the image in Docker demo repository, which I prepared for the demo. Yeah, I sent it to the BlueJeans chat, but eventually this is the ultimate guide how to install the MFTF with Cloud Docker. It will help you a lot because like it's the easiest way that I was able to figure out. And the custom model that I prepared for this lab called let me find this. So yeah, it's called model image in Docker demo. This one. Yeah, it's actually the same model. So it consists of the small controller with index page, which actually just displays the demo block. And also has some configuration, and it has the most important, it has MFTF tests, which consists of two entities. One is the page, which like very, very similar configuration for this MFTF test. And the test instruction, which ultimately just goes to specific custom demo URL and checks if there is a message called welcome to the Cloud Docker MFTF demo. And this is all. Yeah. If you have any question, please let me know. If you have anything with MFTF, please also let me know. I will try to answer your questions and help you to have up and running MFTF to it locally. This demo will be shared after this presentation, so I will share the link into the channel and of course for the our Spark demo page. If nobody have questions, that's actually all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Oleg. I'm stopping the recording, and yeah, we'll share the recording as soon as we have it. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.